Good morning, everyone. My name is Ernesto Nobleas. I'm your Director for Environmental Health and Safety. I've been with the Maui Health System. I've been working for hospitals since the age of 18. I started out as a registration clerk on graveyard weekends. I came to Maui Health System on November 5th of 2018 when I was sitting in your chairs right here going through orientation. When I first started at the age of 18 and I was a registration clerk, I slowly worked my way up ever since, serving as a YARTEC unit coordinator, emergency management coordinator, director of safety and security, and now I'm here with you as your director of environmental health and safety. Before I get started, we're going to be talking about two different topics. The first is emergency codes. The second is workplace safety. We're going to cover all of this within half an hour. Thank you very much for your time. And moving on. So everyone has their badges, right? Including you over there in Kula Hospital. Did you get your badge already yet? Give me a nod if you're still listening. Well, you haven't gotten yet, but for the rest of us here in the room at Maui Memorial, you should all have your badges as well as your badge buddy. Is that correct? Can I get a nod from everyone? Okay, perfect. Now, when it comes to emergency codes, the easiest way that I can make it everyone a subject matter expert is to not only view the material, but to review it. That being said, each of these badges comes with a attestation to do something that I consider a little kidsy. When I put an emergency code on the board, I need every single one of you to be able to say what that emergency code is. So if I ask everyone, what is a code red, everyone will respond with? Fire. Everyone, yeah! Everyone at the same time responds with fire. I think this is one of the few times that we can get away with shouting fire in a crowded theater. But that's something that I need from all of you. Is that something that we can agree on?
Yes.
Excellent. So code red is a
fire.
And when it comes to a fire, yeah. When it comes to a fire, we have two acronyms that we need to remember. The first is RACE. When it comes to RACE, that is talking about our process for responding to a fire. Step 1, rescue those in immediate danger of smoke or fire. Step 2, alarm by calling the operator by dialing 0. That's going to be asked again later. By dialing 0 and pulling a fire alarm. Step 3 is C, contain the fire by closing doors. Important to note that every single door in the hospital that is not a sliding door is a door that gives you at least 20 minutes of fire protection. Now, guys, I have an important question for you. If that door is held open by a doorstop or a piece of furniture blocking the way, or somebody jammed some gloves in the door hardware in order to keep it from locking, team, how many minutes of fire protection is that door granting you? Zero. 0 minutes of fire protection. It is unfortunate. So look out for those kinds of hazards and let somebody from facilities or security, or even let me know that is occurring so that we can make sure that we keep the hospital fire safe. The last step on that process is 2 steps. Extinguish if safe to do so, or evacuate. Now, it doesn't mean that we're evacuating the entire building. You may want to do a limited evacuation past another set of double doors. And when it comes to those double doors that are in between the departments, those doors are usually rated for either 45 minutes of fire protection or an hour and a half of fire protection. Either that or up or down a floor, and the slab is considered, the slab of the floor or ceiling is considered 2 hours of fire protection, which is crazy. But extinguish the fire if safe to do so. And when I say if safe to do so, I mean that you already know where your closest fire extinguisher is, you have it in hand, and you think you can address this fire within the next 10 seconds. Otherwise, the second acronym that we need to remember is PASS. And that has to do with using a fire extinguisher. Team, where is the closest fire extinguisher to where I am standing right now? Yes, perfect. camera for a minute. That first step is the place where most people will have problems with using a fire extinguisher. Pull the pin. When it comes to pulling this pin, you want to make sure that this pin gets all the way out of the fire extinguisher. If there is even a millimeter of the pin still between the handles on this fire extinguisher, this will not discharge any of the either CO2 or dry chemical that you would use to fight that fire. So make sure you get that pin all the way out of the fire extinguisher. Second step, aim the nozzle at the base of the fire. Third step, squeeze the handles or trigger together. And then the last step is to sweep the base of the fire. When it comes to fires, there may be a time where you are in a unit that is served by medical gases, oxygen, or vacuum line. It is important to note that if that patient in that room decides that it's a good idea that they are, while on a high-flow non-rebreather O2, smoking a cigarette, the ashes go up faster than they were expecting, they end up accidentally lighting themselves on fire. Am I looking for you to go into that room, let your arm get lit on fire in order to get to that flow meter? No. But what I am looking for is for you guys to know what the process is for activating any of those zone valves for shutting off O2 to that particular room. You need to check in with the person in charge, and it varies by day or by hour who that person in charge is, but you want to make sure that you check in with at least the charge nurse for any of the clinical units that are served by medical gases before you shut off that O2 medical gas or vacuum. Make sense with everyone? Excellent. Now, once that O2 medical gas or vacuum line has been shut off at the zone valve, you want to make sure that you notify 3 people in rapid succession: respiratory therapy, nursing supervisor, and facilities. Does that make sense to everyone? Perfect. Moving on. So popular today. Team, what is a code blue? Everyone at the same time, we're going to get this together. Code blue is a?
Cardiopulmonary arrest.
Excellent. If you find yourself in one of the clinical units, the easiest way to activate a code blue response is to use any of the push button activations that is labeled code blue in the clinical units. But if you encounter a code blue situation and you happen to not be in one of the clinical units, team, what is the number that you are going to call using any of the hospital phones in order to get in contact with the operator and activate the code blue response?
0.
Excellent.
0.
Nailed it. So, code Dr. Pacific and code Gray. The reason for these codes is not on the board for a very, very good purpose. Code Dr. Pacific is the code that you activate when someone is escalating towards risk behaviors or physical violence. Working in hospitals, we are exposed to all kinds of different expressions of escalating towards risk behaviors. Guys, what are some examples of that, either verbal or nonverbal? Don't everyone jump out at once. Threats. Verbalized threats is a good one. Threats of bodily harm is a good one. Any other examples, guys?
Like nonverbal, throwing like a water bottle or something.
Throwing a water bottle in your direction is a good one. Is it normal for someone to be muttering to themselves with clenched fists while they're pacing back and forth right in front of you? No. Now, the most clear-cut example of someone that might be the earliest form of escalating towards violence is non-compliance with a reasonable request. Now, let's imagine for a second that I'm a phlebotomist coming into an emergency department patient's room. I start with AIDA, I introduce myself. Hello, my name's Ernesto. I'm going to be drawing your blood. It's only going to take 2 minutes. This will be easy. If I could just thank you for choosing Maui Memorial, where we like to serve. If I could just please have you roll up your sleeve, have a seat right here, and we can get this done in no time at all. And that patient responds with, no, I will not be doing that. Was that a reasonable request? Typically, non-compliance with a reasonable request is your first step in escalation towards violence. You'll see that in almost every single instance of activation of a Code Dr. Pacific is that the first step that that patient or visitor or fellow employee took was non-compliance with a reasonable request. So start to think about the possibility of a Code Dr. Pacific once you see this type of behavior. Now, a code gray means that it is on. Punches are being thrown, kicks are being landed, stuff is being thrown directly at other people. That means that it is on. Now, is it possible that a Code Dr. Pacific can escalate into a code gray? Is it possible that a code gray could happen with no previous signs of escalation towards violence? But in each of these single cases, you want to make sure that you're activating the right code or calling the operator to activate the secondary code to make sure that we're getting the right responders for the right situations. Now, in either one of these cases, we've seen that the earlier in the escalation cycle towards violence that we activate a Code Dr. Pacific, the fewer instances of actual physical violence occur. So think about, do not feel guilty if you activate a Code Dr. Pacific just because someone has started on that escalation towards violence. That is a great means for keeping yourself safe, as well as your fellow employees, the visitors, and the patients here. Team, what is a code pink?
Infant or child abduction.
Excellent, I still got you. Where are you at, Kula?
Infant or child.
There we go. So, code pink, infant or child abduction. When it comes to infant or child abductions, our infant security system is cornerstone, is held strong by the work of two teams, our excellent security team and the clinical staff that is on either one of our maternal child health services floors. That is those efforts are supplemented by an electronic system which calls out code pink overhead if there is a infant or child that ends up missing from one of our floors. When it comes to code pink, if you are not part of the security team or clinical staff on infant maternal child health services floors, I just ask that you look, keep an eye out at one of the public entrances or exits. And if you see someone approaching with what looks like it could be a baby, ask them to stop. Please stand by with us while we ensure the safety of our patients, visitors, and staff. Now, it's not always obvious. I'm sure you've seen how small preemie babies can be. So if someone is approaching any of the entrances or exits with a bag, drop that line, ask them to stand by while we take the 2 or 3 minutes to verify whether this is an actual code pink incident or a false alarm. Let's imagine for a second you see someone approaching with a bag. You say, please stand by with us for a minute, etc. That person looks at you, takes one look at the bag starts crying and shaking. In the security world, we call that a clue. And when it comes to that clue, it's usually followed with that person shoving you out of the way and then moving in one direction or the other. I don't have any of my security officers. Okay. Am I expecting any of you to run after that person, slide tackle, recover the baby, and then celebrate with punting it to the floor?
Yes.
No, none of the above. What I am looking for is for you guys to be able to describe what that person looks like, what direction they're headed, so that my security team can work with my police department in recovering our patient. Does that make sense to everyone? Perfect. Now, when it comes to looking out for a child, we're looking for a bigger bag. We're not looking for a bigger bag. Any children, in addition to people bringing bags, any children, whether attended or unattended, need to be stopped at the entrances during code pink. Does that make sense to everyone? Perfect. Moving on. Team, what is a 10 minutes? Oh, goodness gracious. Team, what is a code orange?
Hazmat spill or release.
Way to kick it. When it comes to hazmat spill or release, if there is a release of hazardous materials that outstrips your ability to respond, and I'm talking about not just personnel but processes or equipment, then you need to activate a code orange. As I mentioned, there are a lot of hazardous materials in the hospital just by our very functioning. When it comes to hazardous material, if you're wondering whether or not the material you're working with is hazardous, look for any one of these pictograms. Except for exploding bomb, we're not going to have any of those at the hospital that I know of. Haha. When it comes to any of these hazardous materials, we are required to be able to provide for you a safety data sheet. Safety data sheet has a lot of information on it, most important of which is first aid measures, protective precautions, usable PPE in response. If you're looking for a safety data sheet, pull up the updated Maui Health System intranet site. That does not look like that. That's the old one, I apologize. Click on important links on the Maui Health System intranet site. On there is a label that says SDS. Click on that. It will bring you to SDS Online, where you can type in either the common name, cast number, manufacturer, and it will pull up the safety data sheet that you are looking for. Team, what is a code green?
Bomb threat.
Another one of the few examples of you being able to yell bomb in a crowded theater. But when it comes to bomb threats, it's typically a two-part process for a code green. First is a bomb threat call. Your response to a bomb threat call, if you receive a bomb threat call, is twofold. One, keep that caller on the line, and two, write down every single thing that you hear. Does this person's voice have does it sound gendered? Are there any background noises? Does the person speak with an accent? Anything and everything, just write it all down. Now, to keep the caller on the line, we suggest that you ask them a couple of questions. Two of the best ones that we give out on our bomb threat call checklist is, one, why are you doing this? That gives us a good idea on who this person is so that we can work with my police department on identifying this bomb threat caller. The second question that we tell people to ask is, what type of bomb are you using? Gives us a good idea to how truthful the bomb threat call claim is. When it comes to bomb threat calls, we give a couple of examples on the exercises, and you guys tell me which one sounds more truthful and likely, and which one sounds like it's just a prankster. What type of bomb are you using? I found a stick of dynamite. What type of bomb are you using? I have a non-L detonating blasting cap with a toluene booster on 350 pounds of ANFO in a Ryder moving truck just outside of your loading dock. Which one sounds scary and legit? One or two?
Two.
Yeah. Is it our job to determine how true the claim is or not? No, it is not. So after the bomb threat caller hangs up on you, team, what is your very next phone call to? What extension?
Zero.
Zero. You're going to call the operator, let them know that you just received a bomb threat call. They're going to activate the next parts of the process, and you might be asked, the whole hospital might be asked to look out for a suspicious package. When there is a bomb threat call, there's a code green active, and you're asked to look for a suspicious package, what could a suspicious package look like? It could have wires sticking out of it. It could sound like it's ticking. Honestly, when it comes to suspicious packages, all you were looking for is something that looks like it does not belong, that it is out of place. When it comes to identifying that a suspicious package, do I want you standing over it? Do I want you picking it up and shaking it? Do I want you taking a selfie with it for the grams? None of the above. Put at least 2 walls between it and yourself. Pick up the phone, dial what extension? Zero, and notify the operator, thank you. Notify the operator that I may, during this code green bomb threat, we may have identified the suspicious package. Any questions about that? Moving on. So we just recently changed this from code silver to code active threat. When it, considering what's on the board, team, what do you think this is in response to?
Shooter, stabber.
Active shooter or stabber. Yes. Active, shooter, or stabber. And when it comes to an active shooter or stabber, we have 3 responses in priority order. Run if you can get out of the building without making eye contact with the active threat. Hide if you can't. And fight if you have no other options available. Now, running is a very easy one to explain. But hiding, there's a couple of other objectives when it comes to hiding. When it comes to hiding, you want to make the room that you're in seem as unpopulated as possible and make it as difficult as possible to get into. If we were going to hide in this room, team, what are a couple of responses that we could deploy right here? Lights, are we going to leave them on? Doors, if we can't lock them, what are we going to do with some of the furniture for those doors? We're going to barricade it. Cell phones are going to remain on, but what are we going to do to the sound of the ringers? We're going to silence them. Yep. And then the other objective that some people don't talk about is that while hiding, we need to be preparing to fight if the threat makes their way into the room anyways. Now, guys, what are some good force multipliers that we could use if we were going to need to fight an active threat in this room? The extinguisher, that is an excellent one. And it's not just a good blinding agent, but it is also a not so blunt striking tool. I don't know if you guys have ever seen any of the injuries from a fire extinguisher falling, but it is gruesome. That is to say, it's just a reminder that fight is a last-ditch effort. When I start running code active threat drills again, I do not want to see you guys pulling fire extinguishers off the wall in order to respond to the threat. That's not our job. In order of priority, again, it is run, hide, fight. Make sense to everyone? Perfect. Moving on. Code black is an activation, is a possible landfall of a hurricane or cyclone in the area. And code triage is an activation of our emergency operations plan. And team, that is my presentation. Thank you very much.